Hey folks, Erik the Viking here. It's my second attempt at this video today. I'm not very happy about it because it took me ages and then I realised the mic wasn't on. Yeah. So, this is my American Psych video. I did my English one about a week ago. I thought I'd follow it up. Now, the worrying thing is I've got about 50 albums here that I've got to go through. I didn't realise I had that many. It doesn't look like I've taken that many out of there, but there you go. I thought I'd say a few things about Record Store Day, because people are going on about it. I still haven't experienced the whole Record Day thing. I missed it this year because I was at work. And I'm not sure if I want to get in on it, really. It seems like it's a big hassle, and quite frustrating. And to me, spending a lot of money and time on buying limited reissues when I'd rather have the originals, I'm not, you know. There's a few things that have come out over the years through Record Store Day which I thought, oh, I'd like one of those. Like, they issued the Fish's White Tape album, which is probably my favourite Fish album, on vinyl, and that, I've seen those for like 200 quid now. It's insane. Apparently they're doing it with Junta as well, their second album. I done a few Fela Kuti things, but there's nothing else I thought, oh man, would I kill for one of those? I've only ever got one Record Store Day thing, which I actually got from a shop, like not on Record Store Day. I've got a friend who lives in Cheltenham, which is a few hours from here, in Gloucestershire, and there's a nice little shop there in a supermarket, no, in a shopping centre, a big shop, kind of like an HMV, you know, music superstore kind of thing. But they have a lot of vinyl, and it's all kind of dead stock. So I always get interesting things from there. It's not second hand, but I picked up a Red Crayola single, which was a Record Store Day release, 7-inch on green vinyl of Hurricane Fighter Plane, which I was well chuffed with. That was it. That's the only thing I ever bought, and that was £1. And it was obviously left over from Record Store Day, because most people over here probably wouldn't know who Red Crayola were. Anyway, I've got a lot to get through. So yeah, like I was saying, I was watching Sequoia Flames and Derek Vaughan's and Tony's videos on Record Store Day. I kind of identify with what you guys are saying as well. It's just, you know, I mean, I can see you guys got some stuff which is awesome. But yeah, maybe I should try and get involved next year. So yeah, let's crack on. I may have to do this video in 2 parts, I'm not sure. So again, with the English Psych video, I'm saying the same thing here. Not all of this is necessarily strictly Psych. To me, it has Psych elements in there, and I would put it under that kind of thing. Yeah, so let's start. As Fela Kuti would say, let's start what we have come into the room to do. Right, David Axelrod, Song of Innocence. I don't need to say much about this, it's legendary. His first album, probably my favourite as well. Obviously, it's more of a funky jazz album, really. He's got the Wrecking Crew on it with him, of course. It's a Canadian original stereo pressing, but it's definitely psychedelic elements in there. I don't need to say much about that. Another one, this is more of a Latin album really, but Latin soul, but it's definitely got psychedelic elements in there. The sleeve's pretty psychedelic. Acid by Ray Barretto, I love this album, my favourite of his really, and one of the amazing things about this is it's an original English pressing on London with the Fania logo. This was the only other album pressed on London over here at the time was Joe Baton's Riot. They're both very rare. This is the only one I've ever seen, which I paid about £20 for. Great album, of course, and it's on the original Plum London label. So that's a really nice one. I've had this for a long time now. I haven't seen one since. So that's really nice to get. Really nice one. This needs no introduction, of course. Cheap Thrills, great sleeve, great album. Janis Joplin's finest 40 minutes. Yeah, just brilliant. And she was beautiful, I don't care what people say. It's worth it just for a combination of the two and Ball and Chain, really. It's an original stereo pressing. I won't get it out, but you can see the sleeve in there. Another one that's not strictly Psych, but I'd definitely put it in that category, is Blood, Sweat and Tears' first album, which was when they were led by Al Cooper, Child is Father to the Man. Really good album. My favourite of theirs, really. This is an original English stereo pressing. Really nice album. Just a classic. Very hard to find an original pressing here now. But in terms of the cover design, I find it absolutely horrifying. It's the band members holding child versions of themselves. It's just a scary cover. But that aside, it's a great album. And of course after that, Al Cooper left. The second album's good too, and the third. But not a massive fan of David Clayton Thomas's voice, really. Sorry, I was just putting something away. Yeah, this is another one that's the roots of metal, really, but it's definitely a psychedelic album. Blue Cheers, Vince Busseruptum, the first album, and the best, in my opinion. I've shown this before, I think, so I picked it up fairly recently. I love the sleeve, the American one, because it's got a kind of wallpaper effect. I wish I had an English one, it's very rare, but I like the American design of the label more as well. I love the old Philips logo. Why don't they still use that logo today for their stuff? So yeah, I mean, this is just, I don't need to say much about this album, it's just great. I love Blue Cheer. The first two albums are brilliant. It's a stereo pressing that. This is definitely Tim Buckley's most psychedelic album. I'm a massive fan of Tim Buckley. My favourite album, Star Sailor, which I've shown before. Goodbye and Hello, second album. Really nice English pressing, which is, in America it was a gatefold, but in England they actually printed the gatefold bits on an inner sleeve, which is very hard to find. It's a beautiful stereo pressing on the textured orange label, which is how you know it's the first pressing. And for all you vinyl pressing nuts out there like me, this was distributed by Polydor over here. All of Tim Buckley's early stuff's good. I'm right up to Star Sailor, really. Greetings from LA's okay. Gets a bit patchy after that, really. But overall, he was just brilliant. Much better than Jeff, I'm sorry. Yeah, another band I love. I particularly love Buffalo Springfield Again, which is a masterpiece, but I don't have that on vinyl. This is the only album I have last time around, which is the last, obviously, and third album. Yeah, this is a really good album anyway. I mean, I think it was issued after they broke up in '69, and I don't think they approved of it really, but I still think it's got some really nice stuff, and it's on the lovely English Atco label, which is a completely different design to the American one. Again, this was distributed by Polydor. Really nice, really hard to find. I just can't find a decent copy of Again. It's just so expensive. Or the first album. You just don't see them. Don't need to say much about these guys, of course. The Byrds. I would show Fifth Dimension, but I don't have it, which is great. But it's not great that I don't have it. The album's great. Younger Than Yesterday is the first album of theirs I ever heard, which just completely blew me away. I just love this album. It's an original stereo pressing, an English one, on the textured label, which I haven't seen one. I haven't seen one of these since. They're just so rare. Most that do sharp are in mono. This is a stereo one. Yeah, I mean, this is great because you got Say You Want to Be a Rock and Roll Star, Renaissance Fair, Everybody's Been Burned, which is probably one of my favourite David Crosby tracks. It's just a great album, and it's really psychedelic elements in there as well. But this is my favourite Byrds album. I thought I'd show this one as well because it definitely has psychedelic elements in there as well. The Notorious Byrd Brothers, just phenomenal, and this has got the original stereo sticker on the back too. Yeah, this is just a great album, and again, this is the only stereo one I've ever seen. I bought both of these off the same guy years ago at a record fair for about £15 each, and like I say, I haven't seen them since, so yeah. Glad I got those, because I nearly didn't buy them. So seeing as I mentioned the Byrds, I thought I'd show Crosby, Stills and Nash, of course. Not necessarily a Psych album, but still a great album. I love all three of their albums, but thought this would be a good one to show. And you've got Dallas Taylor there hiding in the door. A really nice English stereo pressing, and hard to find in such nice condition. Like as you can see, even the spine is really nice there. Can you see that? Because it's textured, it's usually worn to shit. And it has the lyric insert as well, which I'm very proud to say I have. I've only ever found one of them, which is the one you see here, and it's on the original label. And interestingly, the English Atlantic label, which is what you see here, has got the same design as the mono Atlantic releases in the States. The stereo ones were a green and blue design. So it's interesting that in England they kept the same design for mono and stereo. Probably because it costs less money. Yeah, also, my favourite of the three of their solo albums. I love Songs for Beginners by Graham Nash and Stephen Still's debut too, but David Crosby's one definitely takes some beating. If I could only remember my name, and I think this was the lowest selling one out of the three of them. And of course you got members of Jefferson on here, members of Grateful Dead, members of Michael Shreve's on here, Joni Mitchell. Got a right lineup on this album, and of course it's beautiful first pressing. And this was one of the last albums on this design, I think, in England. And then they switched to the orange and green. So this is really hard to find, and this is another mint copy. I got this from the same guy I got the first album from, so beautiful. Again, this isn't strictly a Psych album. It's my favourite Doors album. The only other one I do have is Strange Days, which is battered, so I thought this would be the best one to show. Their albums are just so rare now, especially English pressings. And of course this has got the original window sleeve, which you don't see often, with the Jesus cross on the back. It's just great. This is my favourite Doors album, definitely. Just love it. So as I say, I'm not necessarily showing Psych here, just sort of stuff from that period. Now this is definitely a Psych album. Gree by Dr. John, a gumbo classic. I just love Dr. John. Again, this is a nice stereo Atlantic pressing. Oh man, I love all of Dr. John's early stuff, right from here up this album up till like Desertively Bonnaroo. They're all good, but this and Sun, the Moon, the Herbs especially are great. I'm just showing this one here. I've got them all. Maybe I should do a Dr. John video. But I want to hear his new album with the Black Keys. It's going to be really good. Back to the roots, apparently. Really old school sounding, which is what I like. And as a first stereo pressing, this is really hard to find. So I'm glad I got one of those when I had the chance. Another great album, Axelrod produced and arranged. Electric Prunes. Apparently they're not really on this album. Most of the music's by the Wrecking Crew, I believe. Mass in F minor. Ambitious album, definitely. And as psychedelic as they come, it's just brilliant. And this is apart from the punch hole there, it's a mint copy, and it's another Canadian pressing, stereo one. So really nice to have a really nice copy of that. Interestingly, in England, I think this was only pressed in mono, because I've only ever seen mono pressings, never seen a stereo one. If they are out there, they must be very rare. And the mono ones are usually expensive as well. Yeah, this is an interesting album. Not one that I play a lot these days, but when I first got it, I listened to it a lot. 4 Seasons, Stab at Psychedelia, produced by Bob Gaudio, of course. The Imitation Life Gazette, Genuine Imitation Life Gazette. The American pressing had quite a nice sort of fold-out newspaper sleeve, I think, quite like thick as a brick. But this is just a single sleeve, but it's a really nice pressing. Quite rare. Didn't sell at all over here. That's an interesting album, definitely. You can definitely see what they're trying to do here. Now, I'm showing 2 by this guy who is amazing to me. He's more known for his production work, but I love his solo albums as well. I'm talking about Kim Fowley, who was a big part of the, big friends with Zappa and all that sort of thing. Definitely was in the same boat, shall we say. This album is psychedelic. It's from '66, and it's all the music is by Michael Lloyd, who was 18 at the time. He plays everything on it. He was in the West Coast Pop Art Experimental Band. Yeah, this album is very good. It's only about 25 minutes long. It's on the Tower label, mono pressing. I think they only had mono pressings of this, and duophonic, which wasn't really stereo. Yeah, it's an original, which I got for £15, which I'm very pleased with. Yeah, this is Kim Fowley. I think he's really taking the piss out of psychedelia on this. It's not obvious, but it's like, this is like We're Only In It For The Money by Zappa, but a year before. Not as good, but still very good. Yeah, it's an awesome album if you can get it. It's very hard to find. But even better is the album. He did another album called Born To Be Wild, which is an instrumental organ album, which is pretty substandard. But then after that, he blew people's minds further. Whoever heard it, not many people did, with Outrageous, which came out in '68 or '69. Now, if you just look at him here, in a sewer pit, with a naked lady, with chains on him, I mean, it's worth it for the cover alone. I mean, I knew about Kim Fowley anyway, mainly through Zappa and stuff like, you know, B Bumble and the Rockers and all that, or B Bumble and the Stingers. Sorry. And I was reading about it. So I basically read a review about this album by Julian Cope on his Head Heritage website. Now read that review, because I find this very hard to describe. It's almost like, it's a funky psychedelic album. You've got Mars Bonfire from Stephen Wolf on guitar. It's as heavy as they come, but his vocals, he just sounds like he's tripping his nuts off on this album. Whether he probably was. It's on Imperial as well. The vocals are ridiculous. It's just ranting. It's not really singing. Seriously, read Julian Cope's review, because he sums it up very well. And I would definitely, if you're into heavy American psych, I would definitely try and track this down. It took me quite a while to get one. I did pay quite a bit for it, about £30–40, but it is well worth the hunt. Okay, the Fugs don't need no introduction. You know, they're on the same level as Zappa. This is the first album, of course, as you can see, with the Holy Modal Rounders on there too. Just the ESP pressing. The first one was on Broadway, which is very rare. No, Broadside, sorry. But it's nice to have the ESP one. I like ESP, and of course you've got the such legendary albums advertised here as Patty Waters' album, Burton Green, Sonny Murray, the Fugs' second album, East Village Other, Sun Ra, New York Iron Ear Control. Man, that label had some heavy stuff on it. Now, Anders, I don't know if you're watching this. I know you've got a lot of ESP releases. This is the very first pressing. The very early ESP releases were on a red label. I think the later ones were on orange or white, or maybe it was orange and red at the same time with the first run. Yeah, so this is a definite first ESP pressing. Very hard to find. Really thick vinyl, really good quality vinyl, which is great for something on such a small label. Yeah, this album's insane. Really good. Even better, I thought I'd show the second album as well, because that's even more psychedelic. The cover's great, of course. This cover was only used on the very first pressings, and is a lot rarer, I believe, than the more common cover, which has a kind of photo of them on stage in black and white, just singing. But yeah, this is a great sleeve, and again it's on ESP, of course. Oh man, all the Fugs 60s albums are good, really. Tenderness Junction's really good, which I also have, but I'm just showing these two today. So if anyone wants to see a Fugs video, let me know. Another ESP artist, just as bizarre, more primitive than the Fugs, if you can imagine. The Gods. These guys couldn't play to save their lives, but that's what works on this album. There's a lot of drone-like material on here. This is the second one, of course. Now this is the very rare English pressing on Fontana, but you can see it still has an ESP disc logo. This is very rare. I've seen this go for about £200 on eBay. I know it's eBay, but I picked this up at a car boot sale. I don't mean to boast, but it's good to know. I mean, it wasn't even that long ago I got that. So, got people in England, car boot sales aren't dead yet, because you can still get some decent shit, as you can see. Now and then. Right, got this playing in the background, of course, Grateful Dead. This is my favourite album of theirs, Anthem of the Sun, an absolute classic. The sleeve is insane, amazing. And this album's so adventurous. I mean, it must have taken forever to put together because it's like a sound collage of live recordings and studio, and they put them together, and oh man, beautiful. It's the first stereo pressing, English one, on the orange Warner Brothers label. Don't see these very often now at all. And these pressings sound heavy as hell. Because Pi pressed these, and Pi knew their shit about vinyl at the time. And I thought I'd show Oxymoxua as well, the third album, which has got an equally brilliant cover. Not as good an album, but still good. Similar design on the back. And apparently one of the children here, I'm not sure which one, it might be her, is Courtney Love apparently. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. Still a cool album though, and again they got the first English pressing of that as well. First album's great too, but for me, the last really good album is Working Man's Dead. It goes downhill a bit after that. I'm sorry, Deadheads, but that's how I feel. Sorry. Frog in my throat, excuse me. Richie Havens is next. Another legend, of course. He opened at Woodstock. This is his first album, Something Else Again. As you can see, he plays a bit of sitar on this album, just on the one track. This album's a really good psychedelic album. Also, Mixed Bag, his second album, and the third one, 1983, are also brilliant. They're all on Verve Forecast. It's an American pressing. I'd love to have an English one, but they're very rare. I've got English pressings of the other two. Yeah, guys, this is a good album. Another great one, which I've shown before on my Straight Records video. Zappa and Herbie Cohen's label. Judy Henskine, Jerry Esther's Farewell Aldebaran. This is a really good psychedelic folk album. Really nice. Jerry Esther, of course, was involved in Lovin' Spoonful and that, and he was a producer as well. And Judy Henskine's just a bluesy folk singer, brilliant voice. And this album's just great. And it's an English pressing on Straight, the most beautiful label. Very rare. I don't know how rare American pressings are. I've had quite a few of them before. I had an American one before I picked up this one even. But it's really nice to get an original stereo English pressing with the CBS logo there, see? Great stuff. Another bunch of guys who I mentioned earlier, the Holy Modal Rounders. This is their last album, last proper album. The Moray Hills Eat the Holy Modal Rounders. Now, I first heard about these guys through the Fugs, of course, and this was the first album I heard, and I saw the title, I thought, what the hell is that? Is it two bands? Are the Moray Hills another band? No, it's just them, being themselves, absolutely insane, psychedelic folk, really bizarre, just... It's another album that's very hard to categorise and describe. This is an original stereo pressing, English one. Yeah, it's very hard to describe this album. My advice is to listen to it and see what you think. Again, this isn't a mono sleeve, but it's actually a stereo record. Quite common with late 60s English pressings. It's another interesting one. Sandy Hurwitz, Big Star. I know you showed Ezra Mohawk's Primordial Lovers album. This is her first album under the name Sandy Hurwitz, and it was produced by Zappa, who is there on the cover. Well, it was actually produced by Ian Underwood, who was in the Mothers. It was meant to be produced by Zappa. As you can see, it's got the bizarre logo there, which is one of Zappa's labels, and Verve. This is on Verve. Quite like Laura Nero, this album. It's bit darker. Well, Laura Nero is quite dark anyway, but a bit darker than that. There's some interesting stuff going on here. Very dense, kind of jazzy. It's definitely got this element of psychedelia in there, deliberate or not. That's a nice one to have. I only bought it, of course, because I went for a phase of buying everything Zappa related, but I ended up quite liking it. Yeah, really cool. Another classic, don't need to say much about this. Don't know an awful lot about Iron Butterfly. I've never been a massive fan myself, just because I haven't heard that much. I actually picked this up in a collection and loved it. I need to get more of their stuff, really. Heavy's meant to be good as well, from what I hear. This is an American pressing on Atco. I mean, this is just a classic. course. Another band I've only just really got into the last few years, Jefferson Airplane. Of course, they were one of the leaders of that whole thing back then in Frisco. This is my favourite of their albums, After Bathing at Baxter's. I think it's their third album, or fourth album. Third, I think. This is really psychedelic. This is the English pressing, which has got a slightly different sleeve. I actually prefer this design. I like the lettering up there. And another one that's in a mono sleeve, but is actually a stereo pressing. The great thing about this album is it's all kind of sweet, it's all mixed together. You've got Watch Her Ride on here, which is great. Ballad of You and Me and Pooh Neal. Yeah, Young Girl Sunday. Awesome stuff. Spare Change, Won't You Try? Yeah, man, seriously. Another interesting one, Limousine. Now, I picked this up in Florida in a flea market for about 50 cents. One of my good flea market finds, definitely. Florida is the only place I've been to in America on holiday with the family years ago. But I managed to do some record shopping while I was there. Yeah, this album's a funky psychedelic album from '72 on the GSF label, which was also home to the Skull Snaps. Not as valuable as that album, but still quite rare. And this is quite a nice copy too. I mean, I bought it just for the sleeve. I was pretty young when I bought it, but how can you turn down a cover like that? It's dark as hell. It kind of reminds me of the Oz Mutant sleeve as well. Really cool. Another one of my favourite bands now, Love. I'm showing two of their albums, not the first one, although I love that too. Love. The Capo's the first proper one to show psychedelia, I think. And the Capo's just brilliant. The last track, Revelation, can be hard work, 'cause it's 18 minutes long and it's just a blues jam, really. Kind of lets it down, but the first half of the album, it more than makes up for it. And that's an original stereo pressing, an English one. And I got this a few years ago for about £30, which is cheap, really, because it is mint condition. So that's lovely. And of course I've got Forever Changes, which is mind-blowing. The funny thing about Forever Changes is that I wasn't massively into it when I first heard it. I heard Alone Again, or I love that, and then I got this, bought this on CD. It didn't really click, so I just sort of put it away, and something told me not to sell it, because I think I had a feeling I'd come back to it. Anyway, about 2 years down the line, this is about 6 years ago now, me and my friend Simon, we both just broken up with our girlfriends at the same time. We're both a bit fed up, we're having a drink at mine, you know, as you do. Anyway, we were looking through my CDs and everything, and I showed him the sleeve, so I'll show you the original stereo there. And I said, have you heard this before? He said, no, but I've seen the sleeve. He said, what's it like? I said, I can't get into it. That's what I said at the time. I said, I can't really get into it. And so, we put it on, and it instantly clicked with both of us, and we were both just like, what? And since then it's been both of us. It's been one of our favourite albums. It's just incredible. Even now, I mean, you know, I love everything on it. And again, this is another mono pressing, mono sleeve with a stereo record. Arthur Lee was just the coolest guy. I mean, who else would have a photo with your band holding a broken vase in two halves with the dead flowers in it? And the amazing thing is, he was like 23 when he made this album. The lyrics are so deep, it sounds like he's been living for about 60 years, you know. I know Brian McLean wrote a few tracks as well, of course, but oh man, that album still gets me every time. I love it. I love it. Another interesting one, Mashmakhan. These guys were Canadian. I heard about this album because MF Doom sampled the track Happy You Should Be. It's a really good soulful funky album. A lot of jazz in there too, but there's definitely psychedelic elements in there. Well worth a mention, I think. This is the American pressing. The Canadian one's a lot nicer. It's got a nice gatefold sleeve. But yeah, really nice album. Well recommended by me. This is their first album. I don't know how big they were in Canada, but I know it wasn't that big in the States, but you just don't see this very often now. You never see it over here. I actually got this sent to me from the States. I'm gonna have to do this in 2 parts, so we'll end this one in a minute. I'll continue with part 2 later on. I'll show a couple more. Let's finish the letter M, let's say. Yeah, cool. Got a couple more for the letter M. Steve Miller. Of course, legend. This is my favourite Miller album. His second one, Sailor, definitely his most psychedelic. The first one, Children of the Future, is psychedelic too, but this is better. This is the English pressing on Capitol on the green label. I think it's the second pressing from about 1969. Originally came out in '68. Yeah, I mean this is just brilliant. It's got Living in the USA on it. Quicksilver Girl. Really good and really just really good. It's very psychedelic. And it's a shame because he's often, you know, remembered for the Joker and Fly Like an Eagle. I love Fly Like an Eagle. The Joker's alright, but I mean, this is the shit, man. This is the real Steve Miller, in my opinion. Another band I love, this is the only album I own, Wow by Moby Grape. It's probably my favourite one. I'd love to get a copy of the first album as well. This is the last album that had Skip Spence on it before his breakdown. Tragic breakdown. It's an original English pressing, which is in a... I think the American was in a gatefold, and it came with a bonus disc, Live Grape or Grape Jam, whatever it's called. This is the original stereo pressing. Unfortunately, it's got a nasty mark there, but never mind. Textured label, and it's, I don't know if you can see the last track, how long it is. That is one of Skip's tracks. What's it called again? Just Like Gene Autry, a Foxtrot, which was actually mastered on this album at 78 RPM. The rest of the album's in 33 1/3. Now, my deck doesn't play 78s. I know the track anyway, but what an awesome idea. And it's got Arthur Godfrey on it, who was a bit of a legend in the States. But it's great because you even get Skip before the track. Skip says, "Please change your deck to 78, blah blah blah." Yeah, it's an awesome idea. That's a great album. The Monkees, big fan of the Monkees. Very sad to hear about Davy Jones's death, of course, as a lot of us were. Head is definitely their most psychedelic in my opinion, and the film is a masterpiece as well. Just absolutely mental. Very hard to find an original English pressing of this. The American one obviously had a nicer sleeve with the mirror effect, the silver sleeve, but this is just plain white, but it's a lot rarer and a lot nicer, like pressing wise, I think. On the original let's get it out. On the original RCA label, it's actually orange. Yeah, there you go. Very hard to find. This is their rarest album. It took me the longest to find, and I did pay. Oh well, this was about 5-6 years ago, but I paid about £30 for it, and that was quite cheap for it even then. Yeah, just beautiful. Another interesting one, who was also on ESP. This is another sort of psychedelic folk album, kind of in the same vein as Richie Havens. Jerry Moore, Life is a Constant Journey Home. It's a really nice album. It's an English pressing on Fontana, like the Gods one. Yeah, this is a really nice album, and I only bought this because it came in a collection that I'd bought years ago. 1968 this came out, and I saw, oh, ESP. I thought it was going to be a free jazz album, you know. And then I looked at the back. His credits were guitar and vocals, Erik Gale on guitar, yeah, bass, drums and conga. I thought, okay, it's not going to be jazz then. But I really like it, and the track Winds of Change especially, and Let Go Reach Out, really good soulful, funky psych tracks. Really nice. And he's got a beautiful voice, and I think this was his only album. Does anyone else know about this album? Share your thoughts, etc. Last one I'm going to show for the first part, finish the letter M, is Mew. Big one for Beefheart fans, this is how I heard it. Features Jeff Cotton, who was on Trout Mask Replica, one of my favourite guitarists. When he was with Beefheart, he was under the name of Antennae Jimmy Siemens, as you are. This was Merrill Fankhouse's band, who was also quite a legend in his own right. This album was originally released in '71 in the States on a tiny label with a different sleeve, a better sleeve if you ask me, a picture of the band. but this is the first English pressing from '74 on United Artists. Still very rare. I paid about £40 for this, and it comes with the inner sleeve. I mean, I think the original American one goes for silly money, like 4 figures, I believe. But yeah, you know, if you like beef art, you'll like this. It's not as out there as beef art. It's very psychedelic blues. But you can hear some of Jeff Cotton's guitar lines. It makes you think, you know. I mean, it's well known that obviously beef art didn't write all of his music himself, even though he was credited with writing it. It makes you wonder how much contribution Jeff Cotton did make to Trout Mask in terms of the guitar lines, because a lot of his lines in this sound like things from Trout Mask, just really weird blues lines. Demented blues. It's great, really great. So guys, that is the first half of my American Psych collection. I'll probably put up the other half tomorrow, because I've already done this whole video once and it turned out wrong. So yeah, I'll be back again tomorrow. If I get time later, I'll do it later, but most likely tomorrow. So guys, thank you for watching. As always, keep the comments coming. VC rules. What more do I need to say? That's it really. I'll continue this video soon. Peace.